ask you to describe how you felt about the image of this kitten up here, you might answer by using words like adorable or cute. And if you're anything like me, you might say that you get this intensely fuzzy feeling in your chest where you want to pinch it, squeeze it, and cuddle it to death all at the same time. A word like cute or adorable just doesn't do it for me. But I was so pleased to learn that in the Cherokee language, the Cherokee Indian language, there is a word that's able to capture that intensely fuzzy feeling, that delight that's experienced when we see a really cute baby or kitten. And that word is ukahuzdi, which is sort of a strange word combination between ooh cuddly and ooh fuzzy, ukahuzdi. Beyond ukahuzdi, though, there are many other words in the Cherokee language that is able to capture something that English just can't. And if anyone is bilingual out there, you might understand what I'm trying to say here. Here's the issue. The Cherokee Indian language, among many others, is currently listed as endangered. This means that, like an endangered species, an endangered language is currently very few in numbers and is on the verge of completely disappearing. According to the National Geographic, over 7,000 languages are currently listed as endangered. Over half of these 7,000 languages will be completely gone by the next century. This is a very serious issue. So let's look at why this is even occurring in the first place. And if I can tell you in one word, it's globalization. Now, don't get me wrong, globalization is a great thing in terms of allowing for trade, more cross-cultural dialogue, exposing us to different cultures and countries, but it's at the root of this issue of this language die-off. This is because when we see that people who speak in these endangered languages, they live on the outskirts of civilization. They don't live close to cities like most of the global population does. Because of this, they are actually being exposed to languages like English, Mandarin, or Spanish that they wouldn't normally have been exposed to if it weren't for media and television. To build off of that, when they move, when they immigrate and they become part of the immigrant community, parents are going to encourage their children to speak that dominant language in order to have the best chance at success, which comes through jobs and education. That comes through speaking a dominant language. So all of this comes back to globalization and the issue of globalization in terms of this language die-off. Now, I know what you're thinking. All right, this sounds sort of bad, but why is it so important that we save these languages? How does it affect us? Well, I have two reasons for you. The first being keys to biodiversity. And what I mean by that is that within an endangered language, there is endless amounts of information in there. The people who speak these small endangered languages tend to live on the outskirts of, as I said before, outskirts of cities, and they don't live very close to these larger cities. They live close to nature and exotic animals and exotic species. Because of this, their language reflects the observations and the knowledge that they have that's possessed within this language. In addition, we see that there was this one example that there was this tribe in Costa Rica, and their language was able to name and differentiate between 10 different larvae, which ultimately led to the saving of the Astraptes fugerator, which was an endangered butterfly. But because of this, they were able to save this exotic species, and because of the knowledge that it was already inside of their language. In addition, we see that if we lose an endangered language, it's no less important or no less valuable than losing some future miracle drug that exists in a rainforest. So there is tons of information that is hidden within these endangered languages. The second reason is that language shapes our world perception. And what I mean by that is that as soon as we come into the world, the way that we interact with other people and the way we make sense of the world is through words. That's how we name things, right? So because of that, going back to my other point, is if you're bilingual, you can't translate one idea perfectly into the other idea. That's because the way that we see things is shaped by the words that we speak through our language. And that's what linguists have trying to uncover over the last century, because the way that we make sense of the world around us is deeply tied to the language that we speak and the words that we use. In addressing a potential solution for this language die-off, the clearest way is through documentation, whether it's written or through technology. The internet has been huge in raising awareness about the importance of this language die-off and why it's so important that we save them. There was another example in Australia where there's a professor named Stephen Bird, and he went to interview speakers of endangered languages. And he was able to record these, add them to this huge database, and catalog them and store them. Then we also have just written documents in order to preserve the linguistics and the syntax of the different sentences. But these external forces of saving these endangered languages is only one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is that we need internally from the community itself to try to save these languages. If there is no desire to keep perpetuating these languages within the community, then it'll die out altogether. So both from the outside and the inside, there needs to be the desire to want to continue these languages. All in all, when a language dies off, it takes with it a certain piece of history, culture, and science that the world may never see again. We don't just lose scientific and medicinal knowledge, but I think more importantly, it's about how we lose insights about the way a community sees and interacts with other people, their sense of humor, their love of life. In short, we lose centuries of testimonies of life. It turns out that these languages least spoken still have much to say. Thank you.